Welcome back, everybody. We're going to continue our series with obstacles that women deal with when starting to hunt with the same cast and characters that was in the last show.
I'll kind of get into the story that I told you. I'll try and shorten it a little bit, but essentially, we were told when we first, me and my ex-husband at the time, we were told, when you get into bow hunting, don't go to a big box store if you can. Go to a local pro shop, right? They're going to be more willing to work with you, a little more personalized. They'll have the knowledge. They've been around for a long time. So we did that. And immediately when we walked in, you could just kind of get a feeling where it was like a men's club and wasn't really greeted well from the start. Wanted to order a bow. They measured me for my draw length. Didn't really know what I was getting into. I didn't know have a reference point of my own. We had done a little bit of research and had a few friends that were in it, but we trusted the local bow shop, right? They're supposed to be your pros and everything. And so his bow came in, my bow came in, everything was fine with his. I thought everything was fine with mine. We started shooting, and I kind of got real frustrating for me in the beginning. I wasn't being very consistent. I could hit the target, but something was just always off. And so this was, I mean, a year or two of just trying to work through it, figure it out, shoot at the house. And we started like filming ourselves so we could see our form and look at what we were doing right or wrong, and finally figured out that my draw length was about an inch, maybe a little more too short. And so there was no consistency with where my string was settling, where my anchor point was, or anything. And it all stemmed from initially them just not paying attention to my actual measurements. It went really quick. And after we did some research and found out, how important that actually is when you're getting a bow personalized to you and how they're supposed to measure it. We remeasured, and I thought back to that day when they measured me, and it was just kind of a real quick, didn't really pay much attention to me. Stick your hands out. Oh, okay, it's this. This is what your draw length is. And so that wasn't that big of a deal because we kind of figured it out on our own. It was frustrating because during those 2 years, I got really kind of down about the whole thing. Like I just wasn't making good progress with it. I wasn't shooting the way that I wanted to, which kind of kept me out of the woods because I didn't want to make an unethical shot. I didn't trust myself. I didn't trust that I was going to have that consistency, and I didn't want to wound animals. So finally figured that out. And so then, like typical girl, you want to start accessorizing your bow. And like you said, the pink tacks and all that. I had a camouflage bow at the time. And when I went in to order, different color dampeners or stabilizer, whatever, the owner of the shop actually made fun of me for it and kind of started mocking me about adding pink stuff. Oh, are you gonna you think you're gonna kill more deer because you have pink accessories and stuff. And I've worked around men all my life, so I have really thick skin, and so I kind of blew it off, but it wasn't like in a joking way. It was actually in a pretty demeaning manner that he was speaking to me. In general, that's just how he spoke to me and everything. So we tried to kind of find some other options. We started doing more online research and everything. Fast forward a few years, I competed in it was a Matthews Archery video challenge. And you had to tell a story, whatever it was, submit your submission for a contest. And I ended up winning like second or third place, which meant I won a quiver for my bow. And I asked them to ship it directly to me. They said, no, we have to send it to an actual Matthews dealer, and then you can get it from them. Well, that local bow shop was the dealer that they were going to have to send it to. I begged and pleaded with them not to send it to them because I said, look, I'm not going to get it. Like, they're not going to call me. So they said, nope, we still have to do it. So I reached out to the bow shop. I told them what was going on. I said, look, it's about $100 and something quiver. It's going to be sent to your shop. Please call me when it gets there. Okay. Never heard from them. I called another time or two. Finally, I just went by there after I talked to the Matthews people, and they said, look, it's been delivered. It's there. So I went by there, and the reason why I knew it was mine was because I had had them put the paint dampener in the quiver. It was on the shelf with a price tag on it. They were going to sell it out from under me. So it we had, a little bit of exchange of words, and I had to show proof of the, contest winning. Like, they didn't take my word for it, even though I'd already talked to them through the whole process and stuff. So long story short, after a whole bunch of back and forth in and out of that shop with just a bunch of different instances where they just weren't friendly to me, we found another bow shop, but we had to drive almost an hour and a half to go there versus the 15 minutes down the road. So um, there was a lot of just different things where when I would walk in, they just kind of were rude. They didn't want to entertain any questions that I had. Um, that was that situation. And then had very positive influences in about 95% of everything hunting related. So it's a smaller percentage of the negative, but it's still out there occasionally. So I don't know if anybody else has had that at any of the stores when you've gone to get equipment or clothing or anything like that.
Have you guys had it? Some Wendy, you're shaking your head. So you got a story that
I am not specifically with hunting gear, hunting equipment, but with firearms. You walk into a shop and they look over your shoulder at the men that are behind you, and think that you don't know how to check an action open, and you don't know the difference between a revolver and a semi-automatic and a shotgun or a rifle. And they do treat you in a demeaning way. They don't give you the benefit of the doubt that you might know something about it. And rather than finding out and asking questions, they automatically assume that you don't know anything. And that's going in and knowing something. It's confidence boosting when you can show them, and by the way you handle yourself and by the way that you ask questions, that you can show them that they're really not dealing with somebody who is really wet behind the ears. But I don't think it's specifically the good old boys. I mean, there's a lot of there are younger people working in stores also, that just because they've grown up hunting with dad, they think they know all there is to know, and so it's not age specific, but I think the people are still getting used to the fact that a woman can walk into a store and know what it is that she wants, um, and not need to be educated too much about things. At least that's been my experience with it. They're kind of surprised when you can walk up to something and call it what it is. And then they're not sure how to treat you. Then they quiz you, they test you. So it still happens out there, but I think with more women getting involved in firearms, the folks that work in the stores need to be a little more cautious about what assumptions they make about the women who are walking in. So there's a lot of very competent, confident women now that know what they want when they walk into a store. So there's both sides of that. They need to be able to walk somebody through making choices and know what questions to ask, whether it's a man or a woman. What is it you're looking for? Like you mentioned, Candace, you needed to define what you plan to do with it. And if you don't know that, then that in and of itself will steer you to a different product than if you know exactly what it is that you want. So product knowledge and knowing how to be a good clerk and ask the right questions of the people who are coming into you means that whether you know a little bit or a lot, they're addressing what your needs are, and that's beneficial for novices and experienced folks alike. Finding a good shop or a good clerk that can help you work through making a smart choice.
Yeah, there are some phenomenal bow shops out there where you just feel like family when you go in there. And we had one for a really long time. They unfortunately closed, but there's a lot of good, at least on the bow shop side, out there still. So I'm happy to report that at least. And that shop that I was referencing early on, I believe they've since closed. I think the owner has passed on, and I think they kind of shut down a few years ago. I'm not 100% sure, but I think that's what I last heard. So,
Maria, Megan, have you guys had any issues like that?
Um, yeah, but I think to Wendy's point about the gun shops being kind of repeat offenders of that. So Megan and I are both in the military and obviously very familiar with rifles and pistols um and shotgun as well. Uh and so when I was living down in Norfolk, I gone to a gun show just to pick up uh, um, a lever action rifle to take to the range, just to have like some fun, like when my dad visited for Christmas and that kind of stuff, just to kind of like you know do something that he wouldn't normally do if I wasn't doing it with him. And it was a Winchester lever action that had a was a, I think 30-30 was the shells. And I went to the gun store that was 5 minutes from my house and showed the guy the gun, and he immediately started um really kind of like bad mouthing it. And he was like, oh, it looks like someone tried to put a scope on this or whatever. And it was like, I bought it used, man, uh like chill out. And then he started talking about like the difficulties with getting the ammo, and he was basically saying that I had made a poor purchase because it was difficult for him to get that ammunition in stock. And he also had um just like all these signs in his store about if you're on your cell phone when you're in the shop, then like you're not going to get service because you're being disrespectful. And it's like that this was a few years ago, but like nowadays people pay with their phones, right? And he is still in business, amazingly, but he has never received my business. So I have not had an experience like that up here in Northern Virginia, but I will say that I circumvent a lot of that by buying a lot of my ammunition online. And I also buy my guns online too. Part of it is, most stores don't have, like a compact model in stock. So, going and trying out equipment, if I went to the local gun shop, they wouldn't have it in stock anyways. And my local gun shop up here is actually really great. So I do like them. But yeah, that's kind of like why I mostly do a lot of my purchases online is to avoid that. And then I think the other thing I'd like to talk about is I had I did the archery 101 class at the Hunter Skills Weekend last year, and Steve Rogers was one of my instructors. And so he had seen me shoot for 2 days. And his store is an hour away from where I live. And so I actually went there a few weeks after the clinic, and I went there with my wife, and he got bows for, he hooked us up with 2 bows, and it took 2 hours, right? Like he took 2 hours of his time with other customers and stuff in the store. And he was basically like, it's going to take however long it takes. And that's just fine. And
Mhm.
it was you know, it was everything that Candace's experience wasn't. I really wish that she had had the, you know, introduction to bow hunting, equipment purchasing experience that I had, because Steve was fantastic. And I now tell everyone that is in my area who's interested, you know, oh, just drive over the mountains and go to Steve.
Yep.
He's great.
Well, when I bought my second bow, we went to that archery shop that we ended up enjoying, and they did the same thing. They spent a lot of time making sure it was right, getting me all set up and everything. And that's how your local bow shop should be. And that's why I always try and tell people to go to those if you can, versus Cabela's or Academy or something like that, because they have a higher turnover rate of employees, and they learn, you know, from a book. They memorize some stuff in order to understand it, more so than your local bow shops are going to have people that have a passion for it, that want to see you do well with it. So they want to get you set up right. So I'm glad you had that good experience. I eventually had a better experience, and I actually still have that bow now. Almost, I think I've had that same bow for 10 or 11 years now.
Megan, were you going to say something?
Yeah, so I actually have been pretty lucky. So I went to like a bow clinic. Wendy was there. They put on by Virginia Hunter Ed a few months ago, and so enjoyed that. And then I believe it was Mike Wendy, correct me if I'm wrong. So spoke with him and actually asked him what day he was working, and went down to his shop, which was an hour and a half, almost 2 hours away. And he was so helpful. I mean, like Maria, probably spent an hour and a half, 2 hours, but you know, he took the time to get the proper measurements to you know, do the proper fitting. And you know, he was very helpful, you know, very supportive of women, so I got lucky for that. And then for a shotgun, I was down about probably an hour south, so another, you know, larger store, but not like the Cabela's, you know, name brand ones. And went in, you know, explained the background, and they took the time to answer the questions. You know, I did, you know, use my cell phone to, you know, do some, you know, little research on, you know, some different stuff, but there was no issues with that, and was probably in there for 2-3 hours, and, you know, was able to come out with what I was wanted, and was happy with the fit for that shotgun. But I think I've been lucky, but I also tried to, you know, like to make sure I went to the right stores and talked to the right people, because at the end of the day, if, you know, if there's not the right people in the store, it could be a great, you know, but if it's not the right fit. So I just got lucky for my experience so far, and finding, you know, both supportive people at the stores to help. You know, both times were men who were very supportive of women in the outdoors, and women hunters, and just got really lucky.
Yep. So,
and yeah, that brings up a good point about purchasing equipment. We drive this message home when in some of the NRA firearms classes that we teach. But people think that if they go to a workshop or something, they have to have the equipment in order to go. And if you're just learning, if you're just starting out, you don't know what you need. You don't know how to make sure it fits. And being having the opportunity to try something is great. Having a family member who just goes out and picks something for you because you're interested in it is a great gesture, but most of the time it's not going to be what you would get if you went out and bought it and fit it for yourself. Because can you pull it back? Can you work the slide? Does the firearm fit from your shoulder to your cheek? So a lot of well-intentioned, possibly men, well, my wife is interested, so I'm going to go get her one so that she can get started and she can go do it with us. And as nice as that gesture is, sometimes that can be a big obstacle because it's not the right fit. You feel obligated to use it because the intention was there and they're trying to help you out. And it makes it muddies the water. So if there's men listening, give her a gift card and let her go learn about it herself. And I mean, it took me a year to pick what handgun I wanted to use for myself for the first time. And it ended up being what my husband recommended, you know, a year before. But I had to go through that process myself and learn the mechanics and learn about the different calibers and and fit and had the benefit of being able to shoot some that friends owned. They let me try it. And sometimes you can tell with the first arrow draw or two or shot down range that that's not the right one for you. So so having somebody buy you something so you can get started could be an obstacle. It could be a great thing if it's a great fit, but it could also be it could also make a bad start if it doesn't fit and it's awkward for you to use. So
I've
it
actually
could work
had
either way.
I've actually had countless women when I tell them that I bow hunt say, there's no way I can do that. And I always ask, well, why? Because 90% of them, their first experience was their boyfriend, their husband, their male friend of any kind hands them their bow at like a 70, 80 pound draw weight and tells them to try and draw it back. And they're defeated from the start because it doesn't fit and it's not even close to what they should be shooting. And so I've helped a lot of women in my circle of friends and outside of that a little bit get started with it because and just completely change their mindset because their first experience was a bow that is too big for them, too heavy for them, the wrong draw length. And I've had so many, women that would ask, well, can I draw your bow? And I'm like, no, because it's not going to fit you. You have to go to a shop and have them fit you to it. Otherwise, you're going to get that bad taste from the beginning and have that frustration level. I was able to work through it, but a lot of the times it's, with the people that they trust, they think that they're doing, like you said, they're doing a good thing, they think, but especially with something as personal as a bow, with the draw length and everything, you can really deter a lot of people from it if they get that frustration from the start.
And everybody else that's listening, take heed to what they're saying. Just get out in the outdoors and have some fun. So, bye, y'all.
Bye.
Bye.